The cafe was bathed in amber light, the kind that made evenings linger longer than they should. The air hummed with quiet chatter, the faint hiss of the espresso machine, and the steady rhythm of rain against the glass. Claire wiped down the counter for the third time, pretending to be busy, while her eyes kept straying to the man in the corner booth. Simon, the owner of the restaurant. Every time he entered the room, something inside her chest came undone. He was the kind of man who seemed carved from old stories. Elegant in his brown three-piece suit, a snow-white shirt beneath it, and an air of calm that made even time hesitate around him. His voice had a way of settling in her bones, deep and warm, but dangerous in ways she didn't yet understand. When he looked at her, it was as if he could see the thoughts she tried to hide. The mess of curiosity, longing, and confusion that tangled every time their eyes met. "Can I have more coffee, please?" His tone was polite, but it carried a quiet command that made her heart trip. "Yes, sure," Claire stammered, rushing to the counter. The aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air as she poured the dark liquid into his cup, her fingers trembling just enough for a small spill to threaten the rim. "Careful," Simon murmured, reaching out before she could react. His hand brushed hers, steady, cold, and impossibly smooth. The heat of the coffee should have burned, yet he didn't even flinch. Claire blinked, staring. "You didn't feel that?" Simon smiled faintly, his lips curving in a way that could melt reason itself. "I'm used to the heat." Her friend Gila, ever watchful, whispered behind her from the kitchen door. "You're a walking disaster, Claire, and now you're ogling him again." Claire flushed, spinning back toward the counter. "I'm not!" But she was. Every word, every movement from Simon felt like gravity. When he left, the air seemed to lose something. Claire's heart was still racing long after he disappeared through the door, leaving behind the faintest trace of cedar and saffron. She pressed a hand against her chest, muttering to herself, "What is wrong with me?" Later that evening, the cafe was empty, except for the sound of distant thunder. Gila leaned against the counter, sipping from a chipped mug. "You know," she teased, "if I didn't know better, I'd say you're head over heels in love with him." Claire rolled her eyes, half laughing, half panicking. "That's an exaggeration. I'm not in love. Just slightly fascinated." "With the man who doesn't flinch from boiling coffee?" "Sure, Claire. Totally normal." Before Claire could reply, the door chimed softly. Michael walked in, cheerful, warm, and human in every sense. He carried the easy grin of someone who never had to hide in his own head. "Hey, Claire," he said, holding up a small box wrapped in plain paper. "I know it's not quite midnight yet, but happy early birthday." She smiled, a little stunned. "You remembered?" "Of course," Michael said, eyes glinting with sincerity. Who can forget the best barista in town? The warmth of his kindness made her forget, for a moment, the cold that lingered in her veins whenever Simon was near. She laughed awkwardly, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "You didn't have to." Michael shrugged. "I wanted to. Besides, you never celebrate yourself." Gila coughed loudly from the back. "He's got a crush, Claire." Both of them froze. Michael chuckled nervously. "Ignore her. She's Gila." Claire smiled again, but her mind was already elsewhere, drifting toward a shadow that didn't belong to Michael's world. When the clock struck midnight, a storm broke over the city. Claire sat alone by her window, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. The small box from Michael sat unopened on her table, But next to it lay another, smaller, older, and unmarked. She frowned. It hadn't been there when she came home. Her fingers brushed the top. The paper felt ancient, like something that had been waiting for her longer than she'd been alive. Inside was a note, written in looping, elegant script. The day of inheritance. Beneath it, a pendant, dark metal, shaped like a crescent moon intertwined with vines. Claire's breath hitched. What? The lights flickered once, then died completely. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Then a whisper, soft, almost kind. Happy birthday, my witch. Claire spun around. No one was there. Her reflection in the window looked back at her, wide-eyed, pale, and trembling. But for a moment, just one impossible moment, another face shimmered beside hers. A woman with ancient eyes and a knowing smile. And then the lights returned. The next morning, Claire convinced herself it was a dream. But as she arrived at work, Simon was already there, waiting by the counter, his gaze unreadable. "You look pale," he said softly. "Did you sleep?" "Barely," she admitted, adjusting her apron. "Strange dreams." He tilted his head. "Dreams have power, if you know how to listen to them." She froze, startled. "What do you mean?" Simon smiled faintly, but his eyes, those dark, endless eyes, said more than his words ever could. "Just be careful what follows you out of them." Claire laughed nervously, brushing it off. But when she turned away, she didn't see the way Simon's jaw tightened, or the faint glint of crimson that flickered behind his calm gaze. Outside, the sky was the color of old wine, and somewhere in the distance, an unseen force stirred awake. The morning after her birthday felt different. The sunlight streaming through the cafe windows seemed sharper, almost alive. Every glimmer on the cups and spoons a little too bright, every voice a little too close. Claire blinked several times, rubbing her temple as the rush of sound filled her head. It wasn't just the usual buzz of the restaurant. She could hear things she shouldn't have been able to. Fragments of thought, the subtle rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't her own. "She looks tired again. I hope Simon notices me today. The delivery truck's late, again." Voices whispered like echoes in her mind. She dropped a tray. Coffee splattered across the tiles. "Claire?" Simon was beside her before she could even move. His hand gripped her arm, steady, firm, cold. "I'm fine," she said quickly, but her pulse betrayed her. Simon studied her, his gaze tracing her face like a puzzle he'd already started solving. "Your eyes. What about them?" "They're changing." Before she could ask what he meant, the bell above the door rang. Michael entered, cheerful and out of place in the strange gravity that seemed to settle around Simon. "Morning, everyone." Michael's grin faltered slightly as his gaze met Simon's. "Oh, you're here early." "Always," Simon replied evenly. The air between them thickened, polite but charged. Claire glanced between them, her stomach twisting. Michael turned to her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You didn't open my gift yet, did you?" Claire blinked. "What? Oh, no, not yet." "Well, that's fine. You'll get around to it." He winked, but something about his tone made her uneasy. Simon's voice cut through, calm but edged. "Perhaps it's better she didn't." Michael turned to him, brows knitting. And why's that? Because some gifts come with consequences. The silence that followed was suffocating. Claire forced a laugh, desperate to shatter it. Okay, that's enough cryptic riddles before lunch. I'll go check inventory. But as she walked away, both men watched her, one with longing, the other with calculation. By mid-afternoon, the cafe was closing. The clouds outside turned heavy and dark, the kind that promised thunder. Claire rubbed her wrists absent-mindedly. Her skin still tingled where Simon had touched her earlier. When she stepped into the storeroom, her reflection in the steel refrigerator caught her eye. Her pupils were no longer round. For a second, just a second, they flickered like a cat's, narrowing, then returning to normal. She gasped and stumbled back, knocking over a stack of napkins. "What the hell?" she whispered. "Claire!" Michael's voice came from behind. He appeared in the doorway, concern etched across his face. "You okay?" "Yeah," she lied, trying to steady her breathing. "Just dizzy." He stepped closer, his eyes soft. "You've been working too much. Maybe you need a break." She nodded, trying to smile. "You're probably right." Michael hesitated before adding, "Look, if anything weird happens, call me. No matter what time it is, all right?" Claire frowned. Why would something weird happen? Michael opened his mouth to answer, then stopped, shaking his head. "Forget it. Just promise me." "I promise." But she didn't understand. Not yet. That night, rain poured hard against her window. The pendant, that strange gift, sat on her desk, glinting faintly in the dark. Claire sat across from it, like it might speak to her. And then it did. A soft hum filled the room, low and magnetic. The air thickened, curling around her like smoke. Her breath hitched. She reached for the pendant, and as her fingers brushed it, her vision fractured. Flashes. A forest drenched in moonlight, a circle of women chanting in a language older than memory. And at the center, a woman with white hair and a smile that mirrored her own. "You've come of age, my witch," the woman's voice echoed. "Now it begins." Claire gasped and stumbled backward, clutching her chest. Her hands glowed faintly, faint veins of silver light, crawling across her skin before fading. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." A knock at the door snapped her out of it. She froze. It was late, too late for visitors. "Claire," came a voice, low and familiar. "Simon." She opened the door a crack. "Simon, what are you doing here?" He stood in the hallway, rain dripping from his hair, his eyes darker than the storm behind him. "I needed to see you," he said simply. She swallowed hard. "Why?" He took a small step forward, and the air seemed to bend around him. "Because something changed in you last night. You felt it, didn't you?" She stared at him, words lost. "How do you know that?" "Because I felt it too." Lightning cracked. For a moment, the flash revealed something impossible. The faint outline of fangs behind his lips, gone before she could breathe. She stumbled back. "What are you?" Simon's expression softened. Something that shouldn't exist, and yet does. He stepped closer, his hand hovering near hers, almost trembling. "And so are you." Claire shook her head, retreating. "You're scaring me," saying quietly. "But you need to understand. Your inheritance has begun. Whatever's inside you, it's awake now, and others will come for it." "Others?" Before he could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. "Michael." Simon's jaw tightened. "Don't answer," he said. But Claire hesitated only a second before she did. Michael? Claire, listen to me carefully. Michael's voice came sharp. Urgent. Whatever you do, don't let Simon in. Her blood went cold. She turned slowly towards Simon, who stood silently, eyes full of sorrow. Too late, she whispered. The storm raged outside as Simon stepped into her apartment. The shadows seemed to follow him, coiling like smoke. I told you, Michael's voice barked through the phone. He's dangerous, he's not. The line went dead. Claire's hands trembled. What's happening to me? Simon looked at her with something like regret. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. Stop talking in riddles, she cried, voice breaking. Please, just tell me the truth. He hesitated, then reached out, his cold hand cupping her cheek. You are a witch, Claire. A descendant of those who once walked between worlds. The blood in your veins is older than time. She stared at him in disbelief. That's insane. He smiled faintly. Insanity is just what humans call the things they don't understand. A sudden force burst from her chest, a wave of invisible energy that sent the pendant flying and knocked Simon backward. He hit the wall, but didn't fall. Claire gasped. Did I do that? Simon smiled slowly, his voice almost reverent. Yes, you did. The air pulsed between them, charged with something that felt both dangerous and sacred. For a moment, she forgot to be afraid. The storm didn't end that night. It lingered, a restless echo above the city, thunder breathing across rooftops like a warning. Claire didn't sleep. She sat at the edge of her bed, the pendant clutched in her palm. Every few minutes, it pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. When the first light crept through the blinds, she finally rose, moving like someone who wasn't entirely sure the ground beneath her was real. She reached for her phone, a dozen missed calls from Michael. No messages, no explanations. Simon's words from the night before still burned in her mind. You are a witch, a descendant of those who once walked between worlds. It was madness, but the madness had teeth. It had proof. The reflection that had looked back at her wasn't normal. The pendant hummed like something alive. And the air around her still whispered when she was alone. At the cafe, everything looked ordinary again, or at least it pretended to. Gila was restocking shelves. The radio hummed softly. Customers chatted over croissants. But the moment Claire walked in, silence rippled through the air. She could feel them, their hearts, their thoughts, their hidden fears. It wasn't like hearing, it was knowing. The man by the window had lost someone recently. The woman by the counter was pregnant, but hadn't told anyone. And Simon was watching her. He stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, dark hair damp, as though he'd just come in from the rain. His gaze met hers, and the noise of the world fell away. Morning, he said quietly. Morning, she managed. Did you sleep at all? She shook her head. His lips curved faintly. Then we have that in common. She swallowed, unsure how to bridge the silence that followed. Simon, about last night. You don't have to apologize. I wasn't going to. That startled him, and her. Simon's gaze softened, something almost human flickering beneath the ancient calm. Then what were you going to say? That I don't understand any of this, Claire said, voice trembling. The things I'm seeing, feeling, it's like I'm not me anymore. You are more you than you've ever been, Simon said. The rest was a disguise you didn't know you were wearing. Before she could respond, the front door slammed open. Michael. He looked disheveled, eyes bloodshot, rain-soaked jacket clinging to his shoulders. His voice cracked through the quiet like lightning. "Claire, we need to talk. Now." Simon straightened, the faintest hint of threat in his stance. "You're interrupting." "Good," Michael shot back. "Because she shouldn't be alone with you." "Enough." Claire's voice trembled, but held weight neither of them expected. "Both of you, stop." Her hands trembled as she pressed them to her temples. The whispering voices were back, louder now. Thoughts, memories, 1,000 flickers of emotion that weren't her own. Simon's voice was suddenly near, gentle. "Breathe, Claire." Michael's hand reached for her shoulder. "Don't let him." A pulse of light burst from her palms. The air cracked. The lights above exploded in a shower of sparks. Everyone froze. The cafe fell silent, except for the hiss of broken bulbs. Claire stood in the middle of it all, trembling, eyes glowing faintly silver. "What's happening to me?" Simon looked at her like a man seeing a miracle. "You're awakening." Michael's jaw clenched. "She's losing control." "I'm becoming control," she said, and even she didn't know where the words came from. Later, in the safety of her small apartment, Michael sat across from her, his expression carved from guilt. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "I didn't just happen to meet you, Claire. I was sent to watch over you." Her breath caught. "What?" "I'm a hunter, a protector. My job was to make sure your inheritance didn't fall into the wrong hands." Claire's voice shook. "So you lied to me?" Michael hesitated. "I didn't want to, but there were things out there that would do anything to claim your power. People like Simon." "Simon isn't," she began, but Michael cut her off. "He's a vampire, Claire. He's not like you. He's not like us." The room fell into heavy silence. "I don't believe you," she whispered. "You saw what he is," Michael said, eyes fierce. "You felt it." Claire looked down at her hands, the same hands that had thrown a grown man across a room without touching him. "And what about me? What am I?" Michael's expression softened. "You're the last of a bloodline that was supposed to have vanished centuries ago. A witch born of the old coven, the kind whose blood can heal or destroy." Claire's heart pounded. "And Simon?" "He's the reason the old coven fell. The vampires slaughtered them, took their power, corrupted it." "Then why does he keep saving me?" she whispered. Michael didn't answer. That night, as she sat alone, the pendant began to glow again. She held it, whispering to herself, "Who are you?" The air shimmered, and a figure stepped from the shadows. An old woman in a flowing gown of deep gray silk, her hair like silver fire. Her eyes were ageless, burning with both wisdom and grief. "Who are you?" Claire asked, heart racing. The woman smiled softly. "I am Nina, your great-grandmother." Claire froze. But that's impossible. You're dead." Nina's laughter was soft, echoing like wind through trees. "Yes, but blood remembers, and magic has no grave." She stepped closer, her form shimmering like moonlight. "It's time, Claire. Time you learned what was taken from you." Images flooded Claire's mind. A coven in a forest, chanting under a full moon. Flames, screams, shadows with fangs. "The vampires came," Nina whispered. "They wanted what only witches could possess. eternal control over life and death. But we fought back. We sealed our power into bloodlines, hiding them in mortal generations. Until now. Claire swallowed hard. Why me? Because your blood sings again, Nina said. The seal has broken. The world will come for you, vampire and hunter alike. And only you can decide who deserves your power. Claire's throat tightened. How do I control it? By accepting what you are. I'm afraid. Nina smiled sadly. So was I. Courage isn't the absence of fear, my child. It's the will to act through it. Her form began to fade. Beware the hunter's truth and the vampire's love. Both can save you. Both can destroy you. And with that, she was gone, and her form began to fade. When Claire awoke on the couch, dawn had already broken. Her pendant was still warm in her hand, and standing by the window was Simon. Oh, because whether you believe me or not, you're not safe. Nina told me the vampires destroyed my coven. Simon's expression darkened. Not all vampires, Claire. Only those who wanted power. I wanted peace. Peace? She echoed bitterly. You call feeding on people peace? He met her gaze, unwavering. I haven't tasted human blood in over a century. Not since I swore to protect what remained of your kind. Claire searched his eyes. Deep, endless, terrifyingly sincere. And why me? Because you remind me of what I lost, he said, and what I still can't stop wanting. Her heart stuttered. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sunlight caught in his eyes, glinting red for just an instant. Leave, she whispered. Simon hesitated, then nodded once, slow and mournful. If I do, others won't. Choose who you trust, Claire. The time for pretending is over. When he vanished into the fading light, the pendant pulsed again, and somewhere, deep inside, something began to awaken that would change everything. Days passed in a haze of sleepless nights and whispered fears. Claire stopped pretending that life was ordinary. The cafe became a stage for ghosts. Human laughter faded against the heavy pull of what she'd discovered inside herself. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she could feel it. The hum of invisible threads running beneath her skin. Power. Ancient. Restless. Waiting. Michael visited often now, always appearing just when she thought she might fall apart. He never smiled like before. His eyes were sharper. His voice more guarded. He'd stopped pretending too. Your powers are growing faster than I expected, he said one afternoon, his tone heavy with something between pride and fear. Claire stirred her tea absently. They scare me. They should, Michael replied. You're carrying the magic of generations. That kind of strength, it always comes with a price. She looked up. You talk like you've seen it before. Michael hesitated. I have. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small, silver ring etched with old symbols. This belonged to my wife. She was like you. Claire's breath caught. A witch? He nodded slowly. The last one before you. She trusted the wrong man. A vampire. He used her power to destroy her own coven. When I found her, his voice broke off, sharp with the memory. I had to end her suffering myself. Claire's heart tightened. You killed her? Michael's eyes were dark. She was already gone. The vampire turned her into something else, something that wasn't her anymore. The air between them felt suddenly heavy, and Claire realized what he was really saying. You think Simon will do the same to me? I know what he's capable of, Michael said firmly. You have to stay away from him. Claire pushed back her chair, trembling. You're wrong about him. I've been wrong before, he said softly, and it cost me everything. That night, Claire walked alone under the flickering streetlights, her mind a storm of confusion. The pendant at her neck pulsed faintly, a heartbeat not her own. Every corner, every shadow, seemed to whisper Simon's name. She didn't know why her feet led her there, but soon she found herself standing outside his building, the old restaurant, dark now, its windows glowing faintly like eyes half awake. She pushed the door open. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of wine and cedar. Simon? His voice came from the darkness, calm and smooth. You shouldn't be here. Then why are you? He stepped into the light, tall, unearthly, his gaze a storm of longing and restraint. Because I was hoping you would be. Claire's chest tightened. Michael says you killed witches. Simon's expression flickered with pain. Michael doesn't understand. He only sees the blood, not the reason behind it. Then tell me the reason, she said. Simon walked closer, until the air between them thinned. I once believed I could save them, that if I absorbed their magic, I could stop the hunger inside me. I was wrong. I damned us all instead. His voice broke on the last word. Since then, I swore never to drink human blood again, never to take what wasn't freely given. Claire's throat tightened. You're saying you've starved yourself for centuries? Simon smiled faintly. I've learned to survive on less dangerous indulgences. He stepped closer, close enough for her to feel the cold radiating from him, and yet the warmth in his eyes made her shiver for an entirely different reason. You're afraid of me, he whispered. I don't know what I am, she breathed. Simon's gaze lingered on her lips. Then let me show you. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold still. His breath brushed against hers, and suddenly the lights around them flickered violently. Claire gasped as a surge of magic burst between them, throwing sparks into the air. Simon pulled back immediately, eyes wide. You're too strong. Even now, your energy reacts to me like fire. Claire trembled, hands glowing faintly. What's happening to me? You're changing. Simon said softly. You're becoming what your blood remembers. He looked at her with something almost reverent. And I'm afraid I might not survive you. The next morning, Claire woke to find her apartment window open and a small box placed on her table. Simon's handwriting on the note inside. You cannot run from what you are, but you can learn to master it. Meet me where the moon touches the lake. Beneath the note lay a silver bracelet. She hesitated, then slipped it onto her wrist. The metal hummed against her skin. Cool, steady, protective. She didn't know Michael was watching from the street below. His jaw clenched as he saw her silhouette vanish through the window. Damn it, Claire, he whispered. You don't know what he is. He turned away, his hand brushing against the hidden dagger beneath his coat, etched with runes that glowed faintly red. The lake shimmered under a pale moon when Claire arrived. The air was still, the night unnervingly calm. Simon stood at the water's edge, his reflection fractured in the ripples. I didn't think you'd come, he said, voice low. I almost didn't, Claire replied. He turned toward her, his eyes softer than she'd ever seen them. Then why did you? Because every time I try to stay away, something pulls me back. Simon exhaled slowly. That's because our fates are already intertwined. My world and yours, blood and magic. We were never meant to exist apart. She looked at him, searching his face. Are you saying you care for me? Simon stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. I tried not to, but when you walked into my restaurant that day, something ancient in me woke up. I felt your power before you did. He reached for her hand, and now I can't let you go. Claire's heart raced, torn between fear and the pull that drew her closer. You can't. But the rest of her protest was lost as his fingers brushed hers. The world seemed to fold in around them, light bending and shimmering as energy crackled through the air. It wasn't a kiss, not quite. It was something deeper, older, a merging of something neither could name. When the wind finally stilled, Simon stepped back, his expression pained. I shouldn't have done that. Why? Claire whispered. Because now he'll know. A voice cut through the stillness behind them. Too late, Michael said. He stood at the edge of the trees, eyes glinting with betrayal. The runed dagger in his hand caught the moonlight. Claire's heart stopped. Michael? Simon's voice dropped to a growl. Hunter. Michael raised the blade. Step away from her, monster. Claire moved between them instinctively. Stop, please! But neither man heard her. Michael lunged, the dagger slicing through the air, a blur of light and fury. Simon caught his wrist effortlessly, but the silver burned against his skin, the scent of smoke rising where it touched him. Enough! Claire cried, her voice cracking like thunder. The ground beneath them trembled. The lake surged upward in a violent wave that threw all three apart. When the water settled, Simon was gone. Michael knelt in the mud, breathing hard. He'll come for you now, Claire. He'll want what's in your blood. Claire shook her head, tears streaking her face. You don't understand. He doesn't want to hurt me. Michael's voice broke, rough with emotion. That's what he wants you to believe. That's what they all make you believe. He looked at her then, not as a protector, but as a man broken by memory. Please don't make me lose you too. Claire's heart ached, but she stepped back. I need to know the truth for myself. And before he could stop her, she vanished into the forest, the pendant glowing faintly, guiding her toward the destiny that had been waiting since the day she was born. The forest swallowed her whole. Mist hung low across the ground, coiling around the roots like ghostly hands. The pendant pulsed against her skin, tugging her forward, past branches that seemed to whisper, past the ruins of forgotten walls and stones carved with strange symbols. Claire's breath came fast. Every step felt guided, inevitable. And then she saw it, a clearing bathed in moonlight, its center marked by a circle of old stones. The air shimmered faintly. She could feel power humming beneath her feet, ancient and alive. When she stepped into the circle, her pendant flared with light. Claire! She spun around. Simon emerged from the shadows, his expression unreadable, the moonlight catching in his eyes like liquid silver. You shouldn't have followed me, she whispered. I told you before, Simon said quietly. Our paths were bound long before you were born. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. This place, it's sacred. The last place your coven ever stood. How do you know that? Because I was there. Claire's breath caught. You were there when they... When they fell, Simon said. Yes, I watched it burn. I tried to stop it, but the hunger, the curse, it was too strong. He looked down, shame clouding his face. I swore never to let it happen again. I spent lifetimes searching for redemption, and for you. For me? He looked up, eyes dark with something that was almost pain. You carry her blood, the last witch who believed a vampire could change. Claire shook her head, stepping back. No, that's not possible. Her name was Anna, Simon whispered, and she died by the hand of a hunter. The name struck her like a blade. Michael's voice echoed in her memory. My wife was a witch. I killed her. Her knees buckled. Michael? Simon nodded slowly. He's the one. The hunter who destroyed what little peace remained. The one who turned her death into a crusade. Claire's heart pounded painfully. You're lying. Am I? Simon's voice softened. Or has he simply not told you the truth? Before she could answer, the air shifted, a presence moving behind her. Don't listen to him, Michael said. He stepped out from the trees, his face pale, his dagger gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Simon's eyes darkened. You followed her. I protect her, Michael said. From you. By lying to her? Simon countered. By killing her ancestor? Michael's jaw tightened. I did what I had to. She was gone. You corrupted her. I loved her. Simon's voice broke, raw and desperate. And she loved me, until you took that from her. The air trembled with their rage, the ancient circle responding to the clash of bloodlines. Witch, hunter, vampire. Claire stepped between them, her voice sharp. Stop it, both of you. They didn't move. The energy between them was like lightning caught in a cage. Claire, Michael said, his voice trembling now. You don't know what he is. He's not capable of love. It's all manipulation. Then let me decide that, she said. Michael's voice broke. He'll destroy you like he destroyed her. Simon's voice lowered, full of grief. Or maybe I'll save her the way I couldn't save Anna. And then the wind rose. The trees groaned, the air humming with the energy of something awakening beneath the earth. Claire's pendant burst into light. The circle of stones began to glow, runes flaring to life like embers reignited after centuries of silence. What's happening? She gasped. Simon's voice was quiet, reverent. The day of inheritance. The blood is answering the call. Michael lunged toward her. Claire, don't! You don't know what it's doing to you. But it was too late. The light from the pendant spread across her body, her veins glowing faintly silver as her eyes turned bright and otherworldly. The ground shook. Visions flashed, her ancestor Nina's voice echoing through her mind. On your 21st birthday, at the hour of your birth, your powers awaken, and with them, your fate. Pain tore through her body, but beneath it, there was something else. Knowledge, memory, power. The forest, the stones, the stars, they all bent toward her. Simon dropped to his knees, his voice a whisper. She's transcending. Michael stepped forward, voice cracking with fear. She's dying. No, Simon said. She's becoming. The light flared so brightly it seared the air. Then, as suddenly as it began, it vanished. Claire fell. Simon caught her before she hit the ground. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold, but pulsing faintly with silver light. Michael froze, torn between fury and terror. What did you do to her? Simon looked up, eyes fierce and bright. Nothing. This was always her destiny. She's not your redemption, Simon, Michael shouted. She's my responsibility. Simon's voice was ice. She's not yours to claim. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire stirred, her voice weak but steady. I can hear you both. They froze. She opened her eyes, silver now, luminous in the moonlight. And I can hear everything else. The forest whispered around her. The wind spoke in forgotten tongues. The stones pulsed beneath her palms like beating hearts. Claire stood slowly, her hair stirring in an unseen breeze. I see now. The covens fall, the blood that cursed you both, the cycle that binds us. She turned to Michael. You killed my ancestor because you thought it was mercy. His eyes filled with pain. Claire, and you, she said, facing Simon. You loved her enough to damn yourself. Simon bowed his head. And I would do it again. Claire took a step back, tears glistening in her eyes. Then both of you are bound by the same sin. Love twisted by fear. Her voice softened, trembling with emotion. I won't be part of that cycle. The air shimmered. For a moment, Simon reached for her, but she stepped away. The glow around her began to fade, leaving only the faint pulse of light in her pendant. She turned and walked past them, the mist swallowing her figure. Neither man followed. Michael sank to his knees, his dagger falling from his hand. She's gone. Simon watched the trees where she had vanished, his voice hollow. No, she's only just begun. For days, the forest called to her. Whenever she closed her eyes, she saw runes burning beneath her skin and heard her ancestors whisper, "The blood remembers, child. The blood remembers." Claire hid in the small cabin on the edge of the woods, the one she'd inherited but never truly lived in. There, she taught herself to breathe again. Every morning she practiced slowing her pulse until candles flickered with her heartbeat. Every night she traced sigils in the dust, learning how to weave air into warmth, light into protection. The world outside moved on, but Claire no longer belonged to it. She was half spirit, half storm. And yet she still thought of them. Simon, the monster who had saved her life. Michael, the man who had sworn to protect her, but carried the weight of his own sins. One evening, she knelt by the hearth, the pendant resting in her palm. "Nina," she whispered, "if you're still out there, help me understand what I am." The flame before her stretched tall, twisting until it took shape, a woman of smoke and silver light. "I am always here," Nina said. "You stand where I once stood, at the edge between mercy and power." Claire's throat tightened. "Why me? Why now?" "Because the world you live in has forgotten balance. The hunter kills out of fear, the vampire feeds out of hunger, and you, my child, are the bridge between them." "I don't want to be their bridge," Claire murmured. "I just want to live." Nina's voice softened. "To live is to choose, but every choice shapes the spell that becomes your life." The image flickered, dimming. Beware the one who acts from love twisted into vengeance. And then she was gone. A knock shattered the silence. Claire's heart jumped. No one should have known where she was. She reached instinctively for the air. The candles flared, their flames sharpening into thin spears of light. "Claire," a voice called gently. She froze. Simon. When she opened the door, he stood beneath the dripping eaves, rain tracing silver paths down his face. He looked exhausted, his eyes darker than she remembered, his shirt torn at the shoulder. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "I didn't have a choice." He stepped inside, voice low. "There are others after you now. Hunters who think your blood can end the curse that created my kind." Claire stared at him, realization dawning. "Michael." Simon nodded. "He's not alone anymore." She turned away, pacing. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I owe you truth," Simon said. "And because I couldn't stay away." When she looked at him, she saw the centuries etched behind his calm. Every loss, every silent regret. For the first time, she didn't see a monster. She saw a man who had been punished for loving too deeply. "You're bleeding," she said softly. "It will heal. Let me help." She reached out. The moment her fingertips touched his skin, the wound sealed, light humming beneath her palm. He caught her wrist, eyes wide. "You shouldn't waste your strength on me." "Maybe I'm not wasting it," she whispered. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The rain slowed outside, the world holding its breath. Then Simon stepped back, breaking the spell. "Don't forgive me so easily, Claire. I've done too much to deserve it." "Maybe forgiveness isn't about you," she said. "Maybe it's about me." That night, they spoke until dawn, about curses, the old coven, the quiet ache of immortality. When morning came, Simon stood by the window, pale light washing over him. "I have to go," he said. "If Michael finds me here, he'll bring an army." Claire's chest ached. "Then let me go with you." He turned, startled. "You can't." "I can choose," she insisted. He shook his head slowly. "You don't understand. Every moment near me puts you in danger. I'm drawn to your blood, not just because it calls to me, but because it tempts me. If I lose control—" He didn't finish. Claire stepped closer, her voice trembling but sure. "Then I'll trust that you won't." Simon's hand rose to her face, fingers brushing her cheek as if memorizing her. "You make it sound so easy." "It isn't," she said, "but it's real." He smiled, a fragile, human smile. "Then you're already stronger than both of us." And with that, he was gone, dissolving into the dawn like mist. The peace didn't last. By evening, the woods erupted with the crack of gunfire. Claire ran outside to find Michael standing among the trees, his coat torn, his eyes wild. "Claire!" he shouted. "Where is he?" She froze. "Michael, stop this. It's over. It will be over when he's dead," Michael said, raising his weapon. "He's been feeding again. I tracked him through the valley." "That's impossible," he promised. Michael's voice cracked. "He doesn't know how to stop. None of them do. That's why I have to finish it." "Finish it!" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "You mean repeat the same mistake you made with your wife?" Michael flinched as if struck. "You don't understand. She wasn't herself when I—" "No," Claire said, voice steady now. "You couldn't see her beyond what she became. Just like you can't see me beyond what I'm becoming." Michael's weapon trembled in his hand. "I'm trying to save you." "Then save me by trusting me," she pleaded. A sudden blur cut through the fog. Simon, emerging from the shadows, blood staining his sleeve. "He won't," Simon said quietly. Michael spun, blade flashing. "I told you to stay away." Simon's eyes flickered red. "And I told you she's not yours to protect." They clashed, steel against supernatural speed, sparks flying through the mist. Claire screamed for them to stop, but their hatred had its own rhythm, ancient and unstoppable. Then, in a heartbeat, Michael's dagger struck home. Simon staggered, eyes wide, the blade buried near his heart. "No!" Claire ran to him, catching him before he fell. The pendant at her neck flared, its light spilling across his wound. Michael froze, realization flooding his face. "Claire, don't!" But she ignored him. "I can save him." "His kind can't be saved," Michael said hoarsely. Claire's tears fell onto Simon's skin. "Then I'll save what's human in him." The light from the pendant grew blinding, wrapping around them both. The dagger dissolved into smoke. Simon gasped, his eyes clearing, the darkness retreating from his veins. When the glow faded, he looked at her in disbelief. "You healed me." Claire nodded weakly, exhaustion washing over her. "You said you wanted redemption. Now you have it." Simon reached for her hand. "At what cost?" She smiled faintly. "Every spell has a price. I'll pay mine later." Michael watched them, torn between awe and despair. "You just gave your life to the very thing that destroyed ours." Claire turned to him, her voice soft but sharp. "Maybe it's time to stop destroying what we don't understand." Michael lowered his weapon slowly. For the first time, his eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how." "Then learn," she said. "Start with forgiveness." That night, the storm finally broke. Simon lay weak but alive beside the hearth. Claire sat near him, tracing the runes that glowed faintly on her wrist, the mark of the inherited witch. Michael had gone, his footsteps fading into the rain. Outside, the forest was quiet again. Simon stirred. "The world won't accept what we are." Claire looked at him, her voice steady. "Then we'll build a world that does." He smiled, tired, humbled, and deeply human. "You make me believe that might be possible." She took his hand. "Believe it." And as dawn bled over the treetops, the light touched them both, witch and vampire, bound not by fate, but by choice. The days that followed passed in a quiet haze. The rain had stopped, but the forest still smelled of thunder, wet earth, pine, and smoke from the fire that never seemed to die. Inside the cabin, time had slowed to something soft and sacred. Claire spent her mornings by the window, tracing spells in the air without words, her magic now steady, gentle, alive. Simon would watch her from across the room, still pale, still recovering, his eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. They didn't speak about what had happened in the woods. Some truths had already been spoken too many times. Instead, they existed in fragile silence, two souls scarred by centuries of fear, learning what it meant to simply breathe beside someone again. One evening, as twilight gathered, Simon sat by the fire, the light caught in his hair like fading embers. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, "what might have happened if we had met in another time? A simpler world?" Claire smiled faintly. "A world without curses or magic? Without blood or betrayal," Simon murmured. "I think we would have found a way to ruin it anyway," she teased gently. He laughed, a quiet, beautiful sound that almost felt human. "You're probably right." The laughter faded, leaving only the crackle of the fire between them. Simon's gaze found hers. "You saved me, Claire. But I don't know what that means now. I don't age. I don't die. And you, I'm not immortal," she said softly. "But I'm not ordinary either. Magic has its own rhythm." He reached for her hand, hesitant. "And when your rhythm ends?" "Then I'll still be where you are," she said simply. "In the things I've changed, in the love I gave." Simon's throat tightened. "You speak as if love could defy time." She smiled. "It already has." That night, she dreamed. The forest was bathed in silver light. The air shimmered, and from it stepped her great-grandmother Nina, her form clearer than ever before. Claire bowed her head. "You came." Nina's eyes glowed with pride. "You have completed what I could not. You ended the war of fear." "I don't know if I ended it," Claire said, "but I stopped it for now." Nina stepped closer, her hand brushing Claire's cheek like a memory. You forgave what others cursed. That is true power. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I'm still afraid, sometimes. You should be, Nina said softly. Power without fear is destruction, but love without courage is emptiness. Will I ever see you again? Claire asked. Nina smiled, fading slowly into the moonlight. Every time you choose compassion over vengeance, you will. When Claire woke, her pillow was damp with tears, and the pendant around her neck was gone. In its place lay a single white feather. Days turned into weeks. Michael returned once, unannounced, unarmed. His eyes were tired, his voice stripped of the pride that once defined him. I came to say goodbye, he said. Claire nodded, her heart heavy. Where will you go? She asked. Where the world needs a different kind of hunter, he said. Maybe one who doesn't hunt at all. He hesitated, then added quietly, You were right about forgiveness. It doesn't change what I've done, but it changes what I'll do next. Claire stepped closer, offering her hand. He took it, a fragile truce between the past and what came after. Goodbye, Michael, she said. He looked at her with a faint, wistful smile. Goodbye, witch. And then he was gone, disappearing into the forest, swallowed by the same mist that once carried ghosts and blood. Spring came. The cabin transformed under the season's touch. Ivy climbing the windows, wildflowers bursting through the soil. The lake shimmered again, calm and endless. Claire stood by the water's edge, her hair glowing gold beneath the morning sun. Simon joined her, silent as always, but his presence enough. For the first time in centuries, he didn't feel cursed. He looked at her and said, You could have been anything, Claire. A queen, a destroyer, a goddess, and yet you chose to heal. She smiled. Healing is harder. Simon took a slow breath, savoring the air as if it were life itself. When you first walked into that cafe, I thought you were just a girl who smelled like coffee and sunlight. I didn't know you'd be the reason I'd remember what hope feels like. Claire's heart swelled with quiet warmth, and I didn't know I'd fall for a man who shouldn't even exist. He smiled faintly. Then maybe we're both impossible things. The lake rippled softly, reflecting the rising sun, gold and crimson, like the merging of two worlds. Claire turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. So what happens now? Simon reached out, his cold fingers brushing hers. Now we live, however long we're allowed to. And for once, it was enough. As evening descended, Claire sat alone on the porch, watching fireflies flicker across the darkening field. The wind stirred gently through the trees, carrying a faint whisper. My witch. She smiled. Still watching me, aren't you, Nina? The wind answered, with a rustle that sounded almost like laughter. Inside, Simon was humming softly, a tune from some forgotten century. It was haunting, beautiful, and full of longing. Claire closed her eyes. The warmth of the day lingered on her skin, the heartbeat of the world pulsing quietly in her veins. Somewhere deep inside, she could still feel the magic, gentle now, no longer demanding, but alive and steady. She had found peace, she had found love, and she had found herself. Epilogue. The night belongs to the living. Months later. The old cafe reopened. Its lights glowed warmly against the cobblestone street. Inside, laughter and music filled the air once more. Behind the counter, a young couple served coffee to strangers, never knowing the story that had once begun there. And on the farthest wall, hung quietly between two shelves, was a faded photograph. A woman with kind eyes. A man in a dark suit standing behind her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. No one remembered who they were. But sometimes, when the night grew quiet, the lights would flicker just once, as if the universe were whispering their names.